everything we've set our mind to do as a team, we've been able to accomplish above and beyond what I could ask, hope, think, or imagine. I give 100% of the credit of that to God, who listens and hears the tears and cries and prayers of our families that have lost so much.
Excited to have Lyette Reback on the FITTEAM show. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're interested in learning more about you, your story, and your charity.
All right. So I have an organization that's called Believe With Me. And it kind of started, actually, BelieveWithMe.com started as a parenting family type of a blog. And because I have a good sized family. And over time, I've always had a heart for our nation's military, and especially those that have lost loved ones in the military. And had the opportunity to meet a mother who had lost her son that was a Navy SEAL. And I was so inspired by how much just grit and fight she still had in her, and the joy that she still had after facing, I'm sure, the most horrific loss of an adult child, And so we got together a group of moms who'd lost their sons, about 10 of them in the military, and then about 40 civilian women. And the night was so powerful. We incorporated as a 501c3 and took that name, BelieveWithMe.com, and made that our website for the charity, not really knowing what we were going to do. And then, so that's how we got started serving the fallen families of our military.
That's awesome. So let's, what we'd like to do is just take people back, get to know them a little bit better, where you're from, where you grew up, some hobbies you had, and then we'll come up to present day.
So I'm from Texas. I grew up outside of Houston. My father was a Marine, and he was the type of guy, we never bought foreign cars or foreign tools. Everything had to be made in America. His brother fought in World War II and actually flew Marine Force One for JFK and LBJ. So I grew up in a home that was, that loved this country very much. I then went to boarding school when I was about 10, 11 years old in Dallas, and wound up coming to Florida for university and met my husband, and here I am.
What university did you go to?
So I started at Rollins, which was a beautiful campus, but not very challenging and quite expensive at the time. So I switched and came to PBA, and my sophomore year, that's when I met my husband. So it was a good thing I changed schools.
What did you go to school for?
I graduated with a degree in communications, and the funny thing is I really just chose the major because my good friend was majoring in communications, and I thought, well, sounds good. I like to talk. That's as much thought as I put into it, never realizing that I would, be publicly speaking or writing a book or blogs or, news. I never realized that really pivotal decision that I made without really even thinking about it. I really, really wound up using it.
Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened for you immediately after college?
So by the time I graduated university, I'd gotten married and actually walked across the stage expecting my second child, and just stayed home, was a stay-at-home mom. We had, we have a lot of kids. We got 16 children, 10 daughters and 6 sons. And so I used my education to educate my own kids. I homeschool. So that was pretty much my only focus until about 4 or 5 years ago when we began this organization.
So obviously family's huge and very important to you. And talk a little bit about what it's like having 16 kids.
It's crazy. I mean, I honestly, when we got married, one of the first things my husband asked me when we went out, he said, how many kids do you think you want to have when we were first dating? And I said, as many as God will give me. I want a huge family. And that usually would be like the date ender. Nobody called you back for a second date after that. But he was one of 5. So he thought, well, let's have, maybe 6 or 7, beat my dad, But when we got to 6 or 7, it didn't seem like the family was finished. So we just kept going. And we've been blessed. We were able to adopt 4 children, and they're just amazing miracles. Every time I look at them, I think, I can't believe they're in my family. I can't believe we get to raise these kiddos. So it's somewhat organized chaos, but I love it. When there's several kids away at camp or spending the night away or what have you, it seems so quiet. And there's still 8 kids in the house. It's too quiet. You know, we're used to loud and busy and crazy. So I love it.
So let's get in a little bit more into the charity. Obviously, you have a passion for it. You've been doing just great work. I've heard about it even before today, numerous times. So I'm excited for you to talk a little bit more about it. And we're actually going to release this on Veterans Day.
That's
this,
awesome.
This podcast. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, it really, when we had that first dinner, and I was very intentional telling the civilian ladies that were going to be attending this with me. You know, I would match up 2 or 3 ladies with one mother who'd lost her son, and we really, we kind of trained for it for 2 or 3 weeks. And make it, ask them questions about their son, ask them parenting advice, ask them marriage advice. You know, they've been through the worst thing. They've got stuff that they can teach us, and seeing how joyful it made those moms. I mean, I have pictures from that night, and they're all just smiling so big, and then the difference that it made in the civilian women's lives. A few of them wrote me afterwards and said, I was thinking about divorce and I decided I'm going to fight for my marriage. And I didn't know what we'd struck, but I knew it was powerful. So then what happened was, we went ahead and applied for the nonprofit status, which takes about 6 months. And I was expecting with our youngest baby at the time. And in October, so he was due the first week of November. He just celebrated his birthday a couple days ago. I stumbled upon a Facebook post by a widow who'd lost her husband. He was, I think he was killed in action. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember. But she said, does anybody know of any charities that help families of fallen soldiers at Christmas? I'm kind of strapped for cash. And I just, I'm sure somebody does it. And I read that post and I thought, well, I'm sure somebody does that too. So I start looking and I couldn't find anything. I found one neighborhood in Ohio where they did Christmas lights in their neighborhood and asked people to give donations as they drove through, and they would buy gift cards to give to Gold Star families at Christmas, but that was it. And they would take care of 20 families. So, I came out that afternoon and I sat down with my kids right around supper time and I said, you guys, I think we can do something about this. I think we can. I mean, how cool would it be if we got to give these kids Christmas gifts, and everybody was pretty pumped about the idea, of course, having no idea how we'd actually go about that. So I reached out to a friend of mine. She has Operation 300. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're in Stewart and they do camps for children of fallen soldiers. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, Tara, would you let your families know that we want to provide gifts? They have to register. We built a website in 8 days. They got to register and we'll provide Christmas gifts. And she said, I will, but only if you promise to give to every one of my families. You can't just take 10 families or 50 families. You got to take them all. And I swallowed. There was a little lump in my throat, oh, okay. My husband's in the real estate business. We were still digging ourselves out of 2008. So he made it really clear, this is a great idea. I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic, but don't come to me and say, okay, I need another 50 kids Christmas gifts because we got 16 of our own to take care of at Christmas. So I said, okay, we'll do it. I gathered a group of friends together and shared with them the vision of what we were doing. They were already working on the website. And I said, one of my biggest worries is, okay, we're going to have 168 kids. I don't even know what it would cost to ship gifts to 168 people. I have no concept. That could be $2,000. It could be $20,000. I have no idea. And a friend of mine, Chris Gannon, at the time, his restaurant, Bolé, was just kind of in the back of his mind, rolling around as an idea. And he said, I went to school with a kid whose dad was an executive of some kind at FedEx. I'm going to reach out to him and just see. Well, that kid's dad was now the CEO of FedEx. So with a couple phone calls, shipping was taken care of. And by the way, FedEx is taking care of our kids every year at Christmas.
That's
They've
incredible.
comped all the shipping, which is well over $150,000 at this point. So yeah, so that's kind of how it got started. We had 168 kids that first Christmas, and we asked them to register. They'd put up what they wanted for Christmas, and so if you came on and you saw Johnny Smith and he was 9 and he wanted Legos, you would go get those Legos and ship them to me, and we would wrap them and package them. Since then, we've grown so much and we've learned an awful lot along the way. And so now each child's sponsorship is $100. And then I have volunteers here that go and do all the shopping. And that's made it a lot easier, a lot more equitable across the board. And it's so much fun. You know, lots of university, high school, middle school students that help. And families come and serve together. And when you shop, you've got a piece of paper that has the soldier's name, his picture, his family's picture. The kids that are shopping with their families, like, they really learn the cost of our opportunities and freedoms. And I think that that's one of the most valuable things we do. Giving the gifts is fantastic, but then on the other side, teaching young adults and young Americans, hey, everything you have comes at an incredible cost. And you don't know that. You know, I mean, you and I grew up in a time where I think we were very conscious of our freedoms. We were very conscious of the costs of what it took. We were taught history. It was drilled into us, you know, how many lives in Vietnam, 58,000, how many since 1776, 1.5 million. Like, we knew this stuff, but I don't think that a lot of young adults today or young kids or high schoolers understand that. So when they hold those pages with pictures and a story, it makes it very, very real to them, you know. So that's a little bit about what we do. But we've also purchased homes for families of fallen soldiers, given cars, paid off mortgages, saved for foreclosure. We've done all kinds of really, really cool things, you know.
Share with us, if you would, one of your, I'm sure you have many favorites, but one of your favorite stories of something you did. You've obviously done so many different things.
Yeah,
Maybe something more personal. Maybe?
Yeah, I will. So I think it was our second year. A neighbor of mine had a connection with the Today Show, and so our charity was featured on the Today Show, which immediately took care of all the kids. That was done. Christmas was done, and we had some leftover money when it was all said and done, and I sat there just kind of like, all right, what are we going to do with this extra money? And I reached out to a friend of ours, and I said, she was a Gold Star mother, and I offered, I said, you know, is there anything we can do for you? Maybe we can do like a paint and weed day. We can come refresh your landscaping. I can have some high schoolers. We can put up a new American. I was just trying to think of ways that we could serve, and I could get kids involved in helping these families. And this mother is so gracious and so generous, and I really wanted to bless her. And she said, you know, we're good. Her son, when he was killed, he was single, so they received the benefits, the life insurance and so forth. So they were fine financially to kind of go through that grieving process. But there was another mother who'd been at that first dinner that we had, and she said her car is in really bad condition, and she has to drive a long way every day for work. And so, you know, maybe if you want to take that money and get her a new car. And I said, well, let's go. We were kind of close to this lady's house. I said, so let's go drive by and look at it, just to see. So we drive over, and her car was in the driveway, and she definitely needed a new car. I don't know how this thing was making it 80 miles each way to work, back and forth. But seeing the house, they had a lovely home in Port St. Lucie, beautiful home. The father was really into gardening, so he had beautiful trees, and but their son had been killed 5 years before, and it just looked like life stopped at the house 5 years before. Like just not much was done, and you could see like the homes around it. You know, the yards are cut, and this, that, and the other, and this house was just. It felt very much like life just closing in, you know. And so I turned to my friend and I said, well, she definitely needs a new car, but she really needs some help with that house. because they're, they weren't spring chickens. I'm not going to say they were old, because I don't think they were old. And the older I get, the younger they seem. But they needed some help. So I went home. I told my husband. He said, "Well, what exactly are you thinking of?" And I said, "Well, I think that we should just I think we could, refurbish the home." And he said, What exactly are you talking about? Like, are you talking just clean up the yard a little bit?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. It looks like some windows are broken, and the joist is And he said, "Hold up. Everything you're talking about is all permits. You're going to have to go and get permits. That stuff takes 6 or 8 weeks, not to mention it's really expensive. You're going to run out of money before you even think about getting a car. Like, we don't have anything like that." I said, "Well, why don't we just see? Why don't we just see?" And he said, "Okay, you go on with yourself to the building department and just tell me how that goes for you." He was kind of laughing, because as a real estate agent and a general contractor for 15 years, his experience with the building department is always, slow as molasses and very expensive and lots of hoops to jump through. So I went to the Port St. Lucie building department. I happened to meet with a gentleman who was the head of the department there. And he just so happened to be a gentleman that had been involved with Habitat for Humanity for years. And so when I told him the family, what we were doing, what I wanted to do, he said, "You got to do this. Let's do it." And I was like, "Well, that's great, but I don't even know what permits I need. I don't even know. I haven't even stepped foot inside the house yet to tell you, is it kitchen? Is it bathroom? Is it air conditioning? Is it electrical? I don't know any of that." He said, "Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You give me the start date." And I said, "It's next Friday." He said, "You're starting next Friday?" I said, "Yeah, it's like 4 days away, right? That's plenty of time." And he was like, "You can't just, okay, you tell me, you go there, you tell me what you're going to do. And I'll show up every morning with a crew of people. You tell me what you're going to do. I'll give you the permit. We'll roll like that." Which, when I came home and told my husband that, he was like, that this can't be right. This isn't really going to happen this way. And it completely did. Not only that, but the city of Port St. Lucie gave us dumpsters, provided portalets, helped us contact the media. And before you knew it, with a few friends and some good businesses, we'd probably done about $100,000 in renovations in less than 6 days to their home.
Wow.
And got her a new car.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and the crazy thing about the car is, I didn't even know her favorite car was a Nissan Maxima. And that's the car we got her, a gold Nissan Maxima. Like, it just, I couldn't have known that, and we had easily 300 volunteers on that site. A lot of skilled labor came, and then a lot of high schoolers and university students just showed up to help dig and paint and pull up and nail down boards. And it was awesome.
That is.
Yeah.
That is. Let's do one more. Let's share one more story, because that one's so great.
The next big thing that we had was that was a renovation. So I with that, I had a couple bucks in my pocket, and thankfully, really, I can't recall on that job a single company asking for a check. They would all show up to work, and I mean, we ran through the money, don't get me wrong, but like, it was individuals coming and saying, "Hey, I got to go get lumber. I need this much lumber," or, "Hey, I got to go get this or that or the other." People just picked up all kinds of pieces. So, kind of based on that story, I had a family in Stewart, and I love this mother dearly, and I did not know, when I'd kind of talked about how, my husband is a general contractor and so forth, how we'd done this house for this other family. I really wanted that to become part of something we did every year. And she shared with me that they had, after the death of their son, they'd taken out a loan on their home to keep their business afloat, the land clearing business. So at that time frame, there really wasn't any land to be cleared in 2011. Nobody's doing any real estate. So they lost their business and their home. And I was like, how does this happen? How can you bury a son at Arlington and not own a piece of the ground that he died for? It just baffled me that this could happen to one of our families. So that Christmas, we'd gotten some major media coverage. And again, I had a couple bucks left in the kitty, and I just said, I said to David, I said, I want to buy them a house. Well, that's a whole nother ball of wax, buying a house from renovating a house. And I wanted to be real careful because this is not something that they had asked for. And I didn't want to put them in a position where they felt like they were needing charity. Does that make sense? Like what we were doing was because we wanted to honor them, not because we were pitiful or anything. You know, there's a difference in that. And sometimes it's really fun to be on the giving end. Sometimes it can be hard to be on the receiving end. So it's all in the heart. And I tried to keep it a secret from her what I was doing. I involved her daughter and said, I don't know what your parents would like or what they would want. And so actually the daughter found a home, and she said, this is the neighborhood my parents have always wanted. And I've even heard my dad say this is the house he loved. And it just happened to be for sale. So just kind of moving forward in faith there, I went to the house with like 12 of my kids, because everything I do, I've got my kids with me, you know. And I looked at the house, and the owner was a little like, are you looking at this for you with all these kids? What's going on? And so I came with a contract. And I put my contract down, and I said, I don't have the money to buy this yet, but here's what I want to do. When I explained to him who we were buying this for and what we were doing, he just started crying. He said, I was in the Navy. He said, my son's in the Navy. He said, I will do everything I can to help make sure you get this house. So we were blessed. We got to be on Fox and Friends Christmas morning. And a lot of very grateful Americans were watching that morning as I presented the case for what we were doing. I'd gotten at that point, I'd saved up about maybe $30,000, but the house was $330,000. So when they asked me on the news, you know, how much more do you need? I was like, pretty much everything. Like, this is a great opportunity for everybody here to jump on board and help. And again, amazingly, we put down about $120,000 for that house. They were able to qualify for the loan. My goal was always to give it to them free and clear, but we could do what we could do, and they were more than thankful, because sometimes it's that hump of getting out of the mess financially that grief had really put them in, and then just not being able to catch up with the market, you know, and not being able to recover well enough, or not being able to, you know. So in any case, we closed on that house, I want to say it was like end of February. And then the first week of March, again, we did a blitz reno, flooring, bathrooms, docks, deck, paint, moving walls, all that, and carpeting, and fully decorated the whole place, and got to give it to them. And I bet there was probably 1,000 volunteers on that site. But again, people, you know, we'd spent all our money putting it down on the house. So when we started doing all this reno work, I just kept going, oh God, please don't let anybody ask me for a check, because I don't have much left. But they didn't. People were so excited to be able to give back and to be able to bring their families and serve together, you know, dads and sons, or football coaches bringing their whole team to come serve. And every time a team like that would show up, I'd pull the mom and dad aside, and I would say, this is who you're serving, and here's a picture of their son, and here's how he died, and here's why we're doing this. You know, this is a rare opportunity you're ever going to get to meet a family like this, and to be able to physically give back just a small portion of a debt that we just can't repay, but it's something that we could do. And that was a great honor to be able to do that. Yeah.
What else would you like to share? Any last words? Anything you want to?
You know, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, I would say my biggest concern was I had all these ideas in my head of what I wanted us to be able to do, just had no idea how it would actually work. And obviously, being a mom of so many kids and homeschooling, it's not like I have a ton of time. You know, I'm not at the office every day, 9 hours a day, pounding it out. Usually my workday starts at 8 or 9 p.m. and goes into the wee hours of the morning. But I'm so grateful to be able to say that everything we've set our mind to do as a team we've been able to accomplish above and beyond what I could ask, hope, think, or imagine. I give 100% of the credit of that to God, who listens and hears the tears and cries and prayers of our families that have lost so much, and wants to, and is actually just waiting for people to ask, how can I help? What can I do? And I'm so excited that we've gotten to be a part of that. But I would just encourage anybody that has a vision or a dream in their head of something they're passionate about and they want to do, just start walking, start going at it, because as you start moving forward, opportunities just appear, and it's awesome. This is an opportunity for me to get to appear and to be able to share with your audience about what we do. One of our big fundraisers every year is we have a race July 4th into Cuesta, and each mile is named after a family of a fallen soldier. Their families are at the finish line. Every mile is stacked with signs. Joshua Reinwasser's favorite thing was peach cobbler, and there's his mom serving samples of his favorite peach cobbler at the race. It's a very emotional 4-mile run. That's something that your audience might be interested in participating in, and who knows from there where somebody might say, oh, I could help give this, or I could help do that, and I could have never envisioned that, just being able to come here and speak, for Veterans Day. So,
well, thank you so much for your time and getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. And if any of your audience is interested, you can go to believewithme.com. That's the name of our organization, and you can support our families there this Christmas for $100 per child. Really provide them with an amazing Christmas. So many of our families, we serve killed in action, killed in training, cancer causing, related illnesses, service connected illnesses. And then we serve a lot of PTSD families. And those are the ones that break my heart probably the most, because they don't receive the financial compensation or support. And so for some of our families, if they were killed in action, they've got money to give their kids Christmas, but those kids need to know that we honor and remember them at Christmas and their sacrifice. But those PTSD families, we are their Christmas. So I would just really encourage any of your listeners to go to believewithme.com, check out what we're doing, check out how you can be a part of maybe shopping with us, or sponsoring a child, or wrapping gifts with us, and come be a part of our community and help giving back to these families of fallen soldiers.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.